Happy birthday, sweetheart. My voice trembled as I reached into the inside pocket of my jacket, fingers brushing against the velvet box that had rested there for 5 long years. A gift, a promise, a piece of history that had passed through the hands of women in our family for nearly a century. I had guarded it carefully, waiting for this exact day, Lucy's 21st birthday. The living room was alive with the energy of youth. Bright voices, clinking glasses, wrapping paper torn and discarded in bursts of laughter. Lucy sat at the center, radiant and impatient, her auburn hair shimmering beneath the golden glow of the chandelier. For a fleeting moment, I saw her as Eleanor, my late wife, had been at that age, hopeful and filled with dreams. That resemblance alone nearly broke me. Her hands shot forward eagerly as I extended the small box. From Grandpa. This better be good, she teased her friends, giggling behind their glasses of wine. Their laughter rang sharp in my ears, but I held on to my faith in her. The box opened with a soft snap. The necklace lay there, nestled in worn silk platinum, 3 rubies, burning like captured fire diamonds, catching the light even after a century. Crafted in 1923, a treasure of art and love, a piece of Eleanor's heart. Lucy's eyes skimmed it for barely 3 seconds. Then the lid clicked shut. Grandpa, she said, her tone careless, almost cruel. This looks like cheap junk from a flea market. My heart froze. She pushed the box back toward me across the coffee table. Seriously, this old thing, I mean. Come on, it's my 21st birthday, not a history museum. The silence was suffocating. Dennis, her father, cleared his throat from by the fireplace. Lucy, that's a family heirloom. Stop defending it, Dad. And you too, Grandpa, she snapped, her voice sharp as glass. Come back when you have a real present, something from this century. Her friends chuckled, whispering to each other. One of them even rolled her eyes at the necklace as if it were worthless trinket. I couldn't speak. My throat closed as though Eleanor's final wish had turned to ash there. 5 years of waiting, of planning, of imagining this moment. Gone. The velvet box sat between us like a coffin, small black final. I gathered it with trembling fingers and slipped it back into my jacket. The weight against my chest was unbearable. Lucy had already turned away, dismissing me with a casual wave. Sorry, girls. Old people just don't get modern style. Their laughter filled the room again, washing over me like a storm. I stood. My voice, when it came, was steady, though my soul was breaking. Enjoy the rest of your party, Lucy. I walked to the door, each step heavy. No one followed. No one stopped me. Behind me, the chatter grew louder, revolving around gifts that sparkled in ways youth understood. Expensive, trendy, disposable. The night air hit me hard as I stepped outside. Cold April wind against warm tears. My car waited in the driveway, loyal, patient. I slid into the driver's seat and let the engine hum, staring at the dark street ahead. The velvet box pressed against my ribs, and in the stillness, Eleanor's voice came back to me, gentle and unyielding. Promise me, Simon. Give it to her when she's ready to understand what family truly means. Maybe she wasn't ready. Maybe she never would be. But I had kept my promise. The drive home blurred by streetlights smeared into golden streaks. Familiar turns taken on autopilot. When I finally pulled into my driveway, the house greeted me with its usual quiet. Too quiet. I sat there for a long time, the necklace heavy in my pocket, the ghost of my wife's smile heavy in my memory. I had given Lucy more than a gift that night. I had handed her a piece of her bloodline, of her history, of Eleanor's love. She had tossed it aside as if it were nothing. But someday, when the illusions of youth faded, when glamour and glitter proved hollow, she would learn. And when that day came, she would remember. And then, she would understand. My suburban neighborhood lay hushed at 9:30, porch lights glowing like scattered lanterns in the dark, as if each house carried its own quiet vigil. When I pulled into the driveway, I didn't immediately kill the engine. I just sat there listening to its rhythmic tick as it cooled, the sound oddly human, like a tired heart slowing after a long climb. Inside, silence received me with open arms, so different from the laughter and chatter I'd left behind at Dennis's house. The contrast stung. Parties had never been my world, but tonight the silence carried more weight than comfort. I hung my jacket carefully in the closet, but I couldn't bring myself to put the small velvet box away. My hand clung to it like a lifeline, its weight far heavier than the ounces of silk and stone it contained. It felt like it carried generations and disappointment. In the living room, the familiar warmth of home surrounded me, the scent of polished wood, the leather chair Eleanor had surprised me with on our 30th anniversary, the faint ticking of the grandfather clock. Above the mantelpiece, her portrait looked down. Her smile was oil and canvas, yet somehow it always carried the warmth of her presence. "Well, Eleanor," I murmured softly, staring up at her eyes, "our granddaughter wasn't ready for your surprise." I set the box gently on the coffee table where it looked almost diminutive against the broad polished surface. My fingers traced the edges of the lid before I opened it again. The necklace gleamed under the lamplight, its rubies burning like crystallized wine, the diamonds scattering flecks of fire into the room. It was breathtaking. I'd almost forgotten how beautiful it truly was. From the drawer beneath the table, I pulled out the file where I kept important papers, insurance documents, bank statements, Eleanor's letters. My hands found the appraisal, neatly folded, dated 5 years back, $120 $1,000. The appraiser's words came back to me clearly. An extraordinary example of 1920s craftsmanship, museum quality, irreplaceable. But it wasn't the number that tightened my throat. It was the letter tucked beneath. Eleanor's handwriting, careful and steady despite her weakening hand. "My dearest Sin, if you're reading this, our Lucy has turned 21. Please give her great-great-grandmother's necklace only if she shows proper respect for family traditions. If she's become too modern, too ungrateful, wait. Wait until she understands that some treasures cannot be bought in stores, only earned through generations of love." I closed my eyes, tracing her words with my finger, almost as if her hand still guided mine. She had known. Somehow she had foreseen this exact moment, this exact heartbreak. The necklace rested like a sleeping jewel in its box, the 3 rubies, a living testament to 3 women: Margaret, who wore it on her wedding day in 1923; Rose, who dazzled society functions with its quiet fire during the Depression; Eleanor, radiant as she walked toward me on our wedding day in 1978. Each had carried the necklace with pride, with reverence, with an understanding that its worth was never just in the gems, but in the love and strength it symbolized. Lucy had called it flea market junk. I whispered into the stillness, my voice breaking slightly. "Your great-great-grandmother's wedding necklace, Eleanor." That's what she called it. Disappointment weighed heavily in my chest, yet beneath it, something else stirred resolve. Protection. This necklace wasn't merely a gift. It was a covenant, a bridge spanning a century of women who honored family before fashion, substance, before glitter. Blood alone wasn't enough to inherit it. Worthiness had to be proven. "Wait until she understands," Eleanor had written. And so I would. I rose, cradling the box as though it were a small prayer, and carried it upstairs. The safe in my bedroom waited. Its keypad glowed green as I entered the code: Eleanor's birthday, then mine. The lock clicked and the box nestled inside, among other precious keepsakes, secure, waiting, patient. Just as Eleanor had been. Dawn crept in, pale and quiet, through the curtains. I moved through my morning routine like clockwork: coffee brewing, toast browning, yet my mind never left that velvet box. In the living room, I reached for an album marked 1978. Settling back into my chair, I opened it. There she was, Eleanor, on our wedding day. The necklace shone at her throat, catching the light like a thread of starlight. Her grandmother Rose had insisted she wear it. Something old, she'd said, her eyes brimming with tears. Eleanor had been 24 then, only a little older than Lucy now, but already she possessed a gravity, a depth, a soulfulness that my granddaughter hadn't yet grown into. The photographs blurred as tears welled in my eyes. I closed the album, gently whispering into the quiet house. "She will understand one day, Eleanor. She has to. Until then, the necklace would wait, just as love, tradition, and memory always do." I turned the pages slowly, each photograph unfolding a chapter of our life together. The colors had softened with time, but Eleanor's presence glowed through them, untouched by fading ink. There she was in the garden, hands buried in soil, coaxing roses to bloom. There she was in the Sunday school classroom, surrounded by children, her patience infinite, her smile steady. And there she was again, cradling infant Dennis in her arms, her face luminous with that unique combination of exhaustion and wonder, only new mothers carry. In every photograph, she radiated something no camera could fully capture. A kind of gravity, a depth that couldn't be bought, couldn't be taught, only lived. A quiet power built from years of faith, love, and sacrifice. By afternoon, the silence of the house pressed against my ribs like an old ache, a reminder of how much space one absence could occupy. I reached for the phone more from instinct than desire and called Mike Henderson, my friend since teaching days, my sounding board when the silence grew too thick. "Sin, how'd the birthday party go?" His voice crackled through the line, familiar and grounding. Not quite as expected, I admitted, pulling leftover soup from the refrigerator. The clink of the pot against the stove filled the pause, small sounds of domestic routine that kept me anchored. Mike chuckled softly, not unkindly. "Kids today, they're different from our generation. Different." How I asked, though I already knew. The question was less for information and more for solidarity. Less tied to tradition. My grandson asked me last week why I keep my father's old watch when I could just use my phone. I stirred the soup, the steam clouding my glasses. "Maybe we're the ones out of step, old friend. Maybe." His voice softened, "but maybe not." Even as I spoke the words, something in me bristled, because deep down I knew some things weren't generational quirks. Respect wasn't a fashion that came and went. Gratitude wasn't a trend. And the understanding that love often came wrapped in unexpected packages, that was timeless. By the third day, clarity arrived, not like a thunderclap, but like morning light filtering through curtains. I sat in my study, Eleanor's final letter spread across the desk before me. Her handwriting, those careful loops and firm strokes, looked like her voice sounded steady, sure, loving, but unyielding when it came to what mattered most. Memory rose up, unbidden. Eleanor in her hospital bed, fragile yet fierce, her thin fingers gripping mine with astonishing strength. Solon promised me something. Her whisper had carried the weight of command. "Of course, sweetheart. Anything. The necklace. Give it to Lucy on her 21st birthday, but only if she's worthy of our family's legacy." I'd nodded through tears. "Yes, whatever you want." But her grip had tightened, her eyes burning even in weakness. "No. Listen, if she's become too modern, too focused on the shallow glitter of things, wait. Don't hand her that necklace until she understands that some treasures aren't bought. They're earned. Through love, through sacrifice, through respect." At the time, I'd chalked it up to fevered ramblings, the stubbornness of a dying woman holding on to tradition. But now, with the weight of last night fresh in my memory, I realized she hadn't been delirious at all. She'd been prophetic. She had seen this moment long before I could. The phone rang, snapping me from memory. Dennis's name glowed on the caller ID. "Dad, just checking on you. Lucy was, well, she was pretty harsh last night." "She's young," I said automatically, though the words felt hollow even as I spoke them. That's no excuse for disrespect. "Sarah and I talked about it this morning. Maybe we've been too lenient with her spending her attitude. We should have been firmer." I considered telling him about Eleanor's letter, about the weight of the necklace and the promise that bound me. But something stopped me. This wasn't Dennis's burden. It wasn't Sarah's. It was mine and Eleanor's. "Time has a way of teaching lessons we can't," I said instead. After the call ended, I sat back down and pulled the appraisal from the folder. $120,000. The figure glared at me from official letterhead, the cold precision of numbers that could never reflect true worth. Lucy had dismissed it as flea market junk, without even a second glance. But this was never about money. It was about reverence. About knowing that 3 rubies could hold 4 generations of love, struggle, and survival. About understanding that some gifts carry the weight of history, and history asks to be honored. Evening shadows stretched long across my desk as the decision settled over me with calm finality. The necklace would stay where it was, in the safe tucked beside Eleanor's letters, patient and protected. One day, maybe Lucy would ask. Maybe she would grow curious about her great-great-grandmother's wedding, about the women who came before her, about the fire in those rubies that no price tag could define. Maybe she would grow into the woman Eleanor believed she could be. When that day came, the necklace would be waiting. Until then, I would wait too. Until then, I would honor Eleanor's wisdom and my own promise. Some legacies were too precious to be scattered into careless hands, too sacred to be pawned off on unready hearts. As I slid the insurance papers into the drawer and turned the key, the study exhaled into a rare stillness, as if the very walls had agreed with my decision. Somewhere across Boston, I imagined Lucy's laughter, ringing out in a crowded apartment, her careless joy smoothing over the sharp edges of last night. To her, it was probably already filed away as just another family spat, a momentary embarrassment, nothing more. But life never dismissed lessons so quickly. Life had a way of circling back, of holding up mirrors when we least expected it, forcing us to face truths we thought we could laugh away. I had learned that the hard way, so had Eleanor. Her portrait hung in the living room, where the afternoon light kissed her painted cheeks. She had the same expression she always wore, calm, knowing, patient. That quiet confidence of a woman who had endured storms without ever forgetting where home was. Eleanor had understood people better than most. She knew when to give freely, when to hold back, and most of all, when to trust that love like water eventually carved its way back to the source. I could wait. She could, too. The sunlight streaming through my study window warmed the stacks of old lesson plans on my desk. I sifted through them with practiced hands, the faded ink, a comfort, a reminder that structure and knowledge still had their place in this world, even when family ties felt frayed beyond repair. For a brief moment, the routine steadied me, and then the phone rang. Its shrill cry slashed the peace in two. "Hello, Grandpa. It's Lucy." Her voice softened, sweetened too. Careful slid through the receiver like honey laced with vinegar. I stiffened. "I've been thinking about the other night," she continued, the syrup thickening, "and I feel absolutely terrible about how I acted." My grip on the receiver tightened. "Is that so? I was drunk, you know. College parties and all that. I didn't really look at your gift properly." She paused just a second too long. Calculating. "Mama called yesterday and told me," well, she explained about the necklace, about its history. The lie tasted bitter even through the wires. "And what exactly did your mother tell you? That it's been in our family for generations? That it's really valuable and special?" Her voice wavered just enough to let uncertainty slip through. "I had no idea, Grandpa. I thought it was just some old costume jewelry. You called your great-great-grandmother's wedding necklace cheap junk from a flea market." The words froze the line. The silence between us hardened sharp as ice. When she finally spoke again, the honey was gone, replaced by vinegar. "Look, I said I was sorry. I made a mistake. Can't you just forgive me and let me have the stupid thing?" "The stupid thing," I echoed, my voice low, deliberate. "I mean the necklace, the family heirloom." Her words sharpened, edged with desperation. "Grandpa, I really need this right now. College is expensive and I've got some financial issues to work out." And there it was. The truth unwrapped at last. "Lucy," I said quietly, "you're not ready for that responsibility." "Ready?" Her mask cracked, her youth bleeding through in anger. "I'm 21 years old, I'm an adult, and Mama told me that necklace is worth over $100,000. The number hit like a blow to the chest. Eleanor's voice from long ago echoed in my head. "Guard it carefully. It carries more than gold. It carries us. Now you care about it." My voice held steady, though my heart quaked. "Now that you know its monetary worth?" "Of course I care," she snapped. "Do you have any idea how much debt I'm carrying? How much I need that money?" Her fury cracked, the sweetness of her voice spilling the truth beneath. "You're being selfish, you old fool. It's my inheritance. It should come to me." Each word cut like a blade. "Your great-great-grandmother would be ashamed of you right now," I whispered, grief lacing every syllable. "Don't lecture me about dead people," she shot back. "I need real help, not sentimental garbage about family history. Give me what's mine or I'll find another way to get it." Then silence. The line went dead. I sat frozen, the receiver warm in my hand, as if her anger still burned through the plastic. Outside, a cardinal alighted on the window ledge, its scarlet feathers radiant against the fading light. Nature carried on indifferent while my family unraveled thread by thread. The dial tone hummed in my ear, a mechanical dirge, until I finally set the phone down. Evening shadows spread across the kitchen table where I sat staring at Dennis's number glowing on my screen. 6 hours had passed since Lucy's call. 6 hours of pacing, of replaying her words, of searching for the granddaughter I once knew in the stranger who had spoken to me. At last I dialed. Dad, everything okay? Dennis's voice was weary, the sound of a man just home from work. I need to talk to you about Lucy. The words lodged heavy in my throat. I'm worried about her. Really worried. A pause, then a sigh. She's just going through a phase, Dad. College changes kids. Sarah and I went through the same thing with our independence. This isn't independence, Dennis. My hand pressed hard to my forehead, feeling every one of my 68 years. She called me today screaming about that necklace. Actually screaming. And she knows exactly how much it's worth, Sarah told her. The silence on the line deepened. When Dennis finally spoke, his voice was quieter, almost hollow. After the birthday party, Lucy had begun asking questions, too many questions. Sarah thought she was doing the right thing. She believed that if Lucy understood the necklace's value, she might finally grasp the depth of the gesture. If she knew its worth, surely she'd cherish it more. And did she? I asked quietly. Silence stretched like a canyon between us. Finally, Dennis exhaled, his voice heavy. She called Sarah 3 times yesterday, wanted to know about appraisals, asked if there was any paperwork proving the necklace's exact value. My heart sank, the weight of it pressing against my ribs. The truth settled in, bitter and sharp. Lucy didn't see it as a treasure carried through 4 generations of love and sacrifice. She saw it as currency, a commodity, a ticket out of her troubles. Dad, I need to be honest with you. Dennis's voice dropped lower, colored with pain. Sarah and I have noticed changes in Lucy for months now. It's all about money, appearances, status. Designer clothes, expensive dinners, keeping up with her sorority friends. She's not the same girl we raised. His words hit harder than he realized. A father's disappointment carries a weight that echoes down the line. We thought it was just normal college behavior, Dennis continued, but last month she asked me for $5,000. Said it was for textbooks and school supplies. He paused, and I could almost see him running his hand through his hair, weary and frustrated. When I suggested she get a part-time job instead, she completely broke down. A full meltdown, Dad. I didn't know what to do. The puzzle pieces slid into place with a sickening inevitability. I closed my eyes. She's in debt. We think so, Dennis admitted, his voice cracking at the edges. But she won't admit it. Won't talk to us. Keeps everything hidden. He swallowed audibly. Your mother would be heartbroken to see Lucy like this. Eleanor. Even gone, she remained the center of our moral compass. She had seen possibilities in the future I had refused to face. She had warned me this might happen. She told me to wait until Lucy was worthy of the family legacy. I touched the folded letter in my shirt pocket, its edges soft from years of rereading. Her wisdom felt sharper now, more relevant than ever. Then I hadn't fully understood. Now I did. Dennis's voice trembled. What are we going to do, Dad? I don't know. I admitted, the words tasting like defeat. But I do know what I won't do. I won't reward this behavior. That necklace isn't a check to be cashed. It represents 4 generations of love, sacrifice, and endurance. Lucy sees it as a quick solution, a payday. That's not what it is. That's not what it ever was meant to be. She's our family, Dad, Dennis whispered. We can't just give up on her. I'm not giving up, I said firmly. I'm protecting something precious until she learns what it truly means, until she learns to value it properly. I stared out the kitchen window at the darkening sky. Clouds moved slowly across the horizon, heavy with unshed rain. My reflection looked older, more tired yet resolute. Your mother trusted me with this decision, Dennis. I have to honor that trust. I have to protect both Lucy and the legacy, even if she doesn't see it now. Silence stretched between us, not empty this time, but full of pain and unspoken love. 2 men bound by blood, aching for the same young woman, both realizing she was slipping through their fingers. Keep an eye on her, I said at last, my voice low. Something's not right in her world. I will, Dad. His tone was steadier now. And thank you for calling. I needed to hear this. Needed to know Sarah and I aren't crazy for worrying. After hanging up, I stayed at the kitchen table long after the room fell into darkness. The clock ticked loudly on the wall, indifferent to heartbreak. Somewhere in Boston, Lucy was probably plotting her next move, her heart consumed by desperation. Somewhere else, Dennis was likely holding Sarah's hand, both of them wondering where they had gone wrong, what they had missed. The house around me felt too quiet, too empty. Tomorrow I promised myself I'd return to the basics, simple routines, the ordinary rhythms of life. Groceries, a walk, coffee in the morning. Whatever storm was gathering on the horizon, I'd face it with dignity intact. Morning came carrying with it the fragile promise of normalcy. I made my coffee stronger than usual, checked the weather forecast twice, and went over my shopping list with meticulous care. Routine would be my anchor, my defense against chaos. Before leaving, I double-checked the front door lock, then checked it again. The metallic click of the deadbolt settling into place brought an odd sense of comfort. Security mattered more these days, though I couldn't fully explain why. The drive to Henderson's Market took 17 minutes exactly as it always had. Spring sunlight streamed through the car windows, warming my hands on the steering wheel. For brief fleeting moments, I let myself forget Lucy's angry voice, Dennis's weariness, Sarah's quiet complicity. "Morning, Mr. Brewer." Mary Castellaniano waved from behind the checkout counter, her gray curls bouncing as she smiled. "Haven't seen you in almost a week. You keeping well?" "Fine, Mary," I answered, offering the best smile I could, just stocking up for the rest of April. I grabbed a shopping cart, its familiar squeak oddly comforting. The aisles were the same as always, predictable shelves, fair prices, neighbors nodding as they passed. A small town's quiet normalcy. It wasn't much, but for today it was enough. I chose bread milk, fresh vegetables moving through my list, with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd lived alone long enough to make routine a shield. Normal tasks for a normal Thursday. The quiet rhythm of selecting apples, comparing prices on coffee, placing items neatly in the cart. It was the small order I clung to while my family unraveled in ways I could hardly comprehend. "Your granddaughter's still in college?" Mary asked, glancing up from the register 40 minutes later as she began scanning my groceries. "Boston University," I replied evenly, stacking cereal boxes in order on the counter. "She's growing up." The words left my mouth like chalk dust, dry, brittle, unsatisfying. Growing up. Was that what you called it when a girl measured her family's love only by the dollar signs attached? Mary's hands moved with brisk efficiency, bagging bread, and produced the sound of paper and plastic filling the quiet between us. "My Tommy's 23 now. Thinks he knows everything, but they come around eventually." She smiled, warm and certain. Family blood runs deep. I forced a smile, though the truth twisted inside me. I prayed she was right. That beneath Lucy's hunger for money and status, something of our Eleanor's grace still lived, waiting to be awakened. The drive home felt shorter than usual, not because the roads were different, but because I dreaded the silence waiting for me. My house had become a cavern of echoes, of worried thoughts, of Eleanor's remembered laughter, of unanswered questions about where I had gone wrong. My driveway was neat, unchanged. Mailbox, upright lawn, trimmed flower beds tended by the neighbor's boy. Everything appeared orderly, peaceful. Until I saw the door, my front door. It stood ajar, just slightly, maybe 2 inches of shadowed space between wood and frame. But it was enough. My hands went cold around the steering wheel. I had locked that door. Twice. I always locked that door. I pulled into the drive slowly, deliberately, as though moving too fast might shatter whatever fragile explanation existed. Parking carefully, I sat still for several long moments, my eyes fixed on the sliver of darkness where the door should have been shut tight. No broken windows, no signs of forced entry, no shattered glass. But the truth was unshakable. That door had been opened. My phone weighed like lead in my pocket. Should I call the police? Or Dennis? But what if I was mistaken? What if age, weariness, grief, all of it had blurred my memory? Had I imagined checking the deadbolt twice this morning? No, I remembered the solid click, the ritual of security, my hand testing it again before leaving. Someone had been in my home. I stepped out of the car, each movement deliberate, as though the wrong sound might alert whatever or whoever waited inside. The front steps groaned under my shoes louder than they had any right to be. My pulse thrummed in my ears. The door seemed wider now, 4 inches, maybe more, as though disturbed by movement within. I froze at the threshold, listening. Silence. No voices, no shuffling footsteps, no television accidentally left on, but the air was wrong. It pressed heavy against me, charged like the moment before lightning splits the sky. My hand hovered above the doorknob, trembling. To open it was to accept that my sanctuary had been breached. To leave it closed was cowardice. The brass knob was cold against my palm when I finally wrapped my fingers around it. The door gave way with a whisper. My grocery bag slid from my arms, thudding against the entryway floor, forgotten as I stepped inside. My heart hammered every beat a warning. At first glance, nothing screamed violation. But then the details shouted. The hall table stood crooked, its drawer half open, like a gaping wound. Eleanor's umbrella stand, usually flush with the corner, had been dragged several feet across the wall. Moving further, I found chaos dressed in order. Someone had searched with precision, not rage. The living room bore the scars, couch cushions overturned, stuffing peeking like exposed bone. The coffee table drawer yawning empty, its insurance papers spilled across the carpet like snow shaken loose from a storm. And above the mantelpiece, Eleanor's portrait hung crooked, her serene face tilted, her gaze suddenly alien. My blood turned to ice. The safe, the bedroom. I didn't think. I ran faster than my 68-year-old body had in years, my feet pounding the stairs, fear driving me upward before reason could catch hold. Behind Eleanor's portrait, the hidden safe stood gaping open, its steel door hanging like the mouth of a broken promise. It was empty, completely, devastatingly empty. The velvet jewelry box was gone. The insurance papers lay scattered across the floor like the aftermath of a storm. 5 years of careful protection, of vigilance and secrecy had been destroyed in mere minutes. My hands shook uncontrollably as I reached for my phone. The numbers blurred on the screen, but somehow I managed to dial. 911. What's your emergency? My voice cracked, raw and unfamiliar to my own ears. I've been robbed. Someone broke into my house. They stole family valuables. Sir, are you safe? Is the intruder still present? I don't know. I just got home from... Then it came, a sound that cut through my panic like a knife, the sharp thud of a cabinet, closing footsteps on the linoleum. The breath caught in my chest. Sir, are you there? The dispatcher pressed. Someone's still here, I whispered, every nerve screaming, every instinct alive with danger. They're in my kitchen. Stay on the line. Units are responding. But I couldn't stay still. I couldn't wait. Not when that necklace, Eleanor's necklace, her final wish, her legacy was at stake. 4 generations of love and sacrifice bound into that single piece. Whoever was downstairs hadn't just stolen from me. They had desecrated my wife's memory. I set the phone on the dresser, my body moving before my brain could stop me. My legs carried me toward the staircase, each step creaking, each groan of the wood, announcing my reckless determination. The sounds below continued. Another cabinet, the squeak of hinges, deliberate movement. At the kitchen doorway, I froze. My hand gripped the frame so tightly my knuckles whitened. My heart beat so hard it hurt. Whatever waited beyond would change everything. The back door stood ajar, sunlight slicing through the narrow opening, and there, crouched near the exit, was a figure hurriedly stuffing items into a canvas bag. I stepped forward, breath catching. I was prepared for a stranger, a masked intruder, someone faceless and cold. Instead, the figure looked up and my entire world cracked apart. Auburn hair shimmered in the light. Wide green eyes, so familiar, it felt like I was staring into the past. The face I had kissed goodnight countless times before college pulled her away. Lucy. My granddaughter froze like a deer caught in headlights. One foot hovered on the threshold of escape, yet her trembling body betrayed her. The canvas bag clutched to her chest revealed it all, the corner of the velvet box, Eleanor's jewelry box. The one that had sat in our safe for 5 long years, waiting for a moment of worthiness. What are you doing here? My voice was barely a whisper, strangled by disbelief. My brain refused to process the impossible scene before me. Lucy couldn't meet my eyes, couldn't speak. She just stood there, trembling, caught between flight and confession. You robbed me. The words felt alien in my mouth, heavy, bitter. Her voice broke like thin ice. Your own granddaughter, Grandpa. My knees threatened to give way. The sight of the box so familiar, so sacred, now sullied by her theft, it was almost more than I could bear. You stole your grandmother's necklace. Her shoulders shook violently. I needed the money. I didn't want to. I never wanted to hurt you. Hurt me. My voice rose sharper now, fueled by the sting of betrayal. Lucy, you violated our home. You desecrated Eleanor's memory. Everything we taught you about family. I was going to return it, she cried, words tumbling out in desperation. After I sold it, paid off my debts, I was going to tell you, I lost it somehow. The force of her confession struck me like a physical blow. A plan so deliberate, so cruel in its dishonesty. You were going to lie to my face, I said, my voice trembling with equal parts fury and heartbreak. To my face about losing your grandmother's most precious possession. Tears streamed down her cheeks, her breath ragged. I couldn't think of any other way. Any other way, my voice broke raw with grief. Any other way to do what, Lucy? She sagged against the door frame, her body deflating under the weight of her own shame. The canvas bag slid down, nearly falling from her arms. Her voice was barely audible. I owe money. Lots of money. Credit cards, online shopping. Lies I hadn't expected to hear in my own kitchen. The wooden chair beneath me suddenly felt like stone. The kitchen table, once a place of family dinners, laughter. Eleanor's holiday spreads now stood between us, like a courtroom bench dividing criminal and victim, granddaughter and grandfather. Two lives bound by blood, now severed by betrayal. How much money? My voice came out, low, brittle, almost afraid of the answer. 5,000, she whispered, as if saying the number too loud would break her into pieces. 5,000. Not 5 million, not some astronomical figure. Just $5,000, yet it hung in the air like a death sentence. My Eleanor's necklace, 4 generations of love, was nearly lost for a handful of debt. Spread across 3 different cards, she added, voice trembling. Minimum payments are due and I can't make them. I don't have anything left. I stared at her, my heart pounding with equal parts grief and fury. So you decided to steal from family? I was desperate. Lucy exploded, her palms slamming the table. Eleanor's old salt and pepper shakers rattled as if even they recoiled from her words. Her chest rose and fell with angry breaths. But underneath it all, I saw the cracks in her armor. The fear, the shame, the child who'd once climbed into my lap for bedtime stories. Everyone at school has money, she cried. Real money. Designer clothes, expensive dinners, spring break in Europe. I just wanted to belong. I just wanted to fit in. Her words sliced through me, each one a shard of glass. And so you thought belonging was worth stealing from your own blood? Her eyes darted away from mine. I researched the necklace. Online. It's worth, what, 120,000? I wasn't going to take all that. Just enough 20,000 maybe to pay my debts. You'd never notice the difference. The casual way she spoke of pawning off my wife's memory made my stomach lurch. This wasn't Lucy, my Lucy. This was a stranger wearing her face, talking like the world had already eaten her alive. And after I sold it, she continued, her voice breaking. I'd finish college. I'd get a good job. Maybe even buy you something to replace it. I thought I could fix everything before anyone got hurt. Before anyone got hurt. I repeated the phrase slowly, each word weighed down by the truth. My eyes burned. Lucy, you just destroyed our entire relationship. Do you understand what you broke today can never be replaced? Her face collapsed, lips, trembling, tears spilling over. At that moment, I felt something sacred die inside me, the trust, the bond Eleanor would have wanted me to protect. Shaking, Lucy reached into her bag. Out came the velvet box. She set it on the table as though it were radioactive, untouchable. I'm sorry, Grandpa, she whispered. I'm so sorry. My fingers trembled as I opened the lid. Eleanor's necklace gleamed back at me, rubies blazing red in the late afternoon sun pouring through the window. Still beautiful, still perfect, but somehow diminished, tainted by betrayal. Tell me everything I said, my voice sounding older than I had ever felt. From the beginning. Lucy wiped her face with her sleeve and took a shuddering breath. It started freshman year. My roommate's parents bought her a BMW, just for her birthday. Everyone in my dorm had trust funds, unlimited credit cards, parents who wired money every weekend for shopping trips. Her hands twisted in her lap, small and fragile. And me, I felt poor, embarrassed, like I didn't belong. Her voice dropped to a whisper, barely audible. Sophomore year, I got my first credit card. Told myself it was just for emergencies. But then my sorority sisters planned spring break in Cancun. How much I asked, though my chest already ached with the answer. 2,000. Flights, hotel, spending money. I told myself I'd pay it back with summer job wages. She looked up at me, then eyes red and swollen, the little girl I once knew, flickering in them for the briefest second. And in that moment I saw not just a thief, but a granddaughter drowning, dragged under by a world that measured worth in dollars, brands and appearances. A world I thought I had raised her strong enough to resist. But I had been wrong. But then fall semester started. Lucy whispered, her voice as fragile as tissue paper. Everyone came back with new clothes, new shoes, new everything. I couldn't keep up. I couldn't stand the looks, the comments. I didn't interrupt. My silence was deliberate, heavy. I wanted her to face her own words, to feel the space between them, echoing in this kitchen that had once only known warmth and laughter. The debt just kept growing, she admitted, her gaze fixed on the table. Designer jeans because I didn't want to look like the poor scholarship kid. Dinners at those expensive restaurants because that's where all my friends went. $1,000 purse, Grandpa. A purse, her voice cracked, because everyone laughed at my cheap Target bag. I thought if I had what they had, maybe I wouldn't feel so small. Each confession made her shrink a little more in front of me. She wasn't just telling me what she'd bought, she was peeling back layers of shame, revealing a girl I barely recognized. Before I knew it, she whispered, I owed $5,000, spread across 3 cards. I leaned back slowly, the weight of her words pressing down on my chest. Why didn't you come to us, to your parents, to me? We would have helped you. Her head shot up, eyes shining with tears. Dad and Mom are already stretching to cover my tuition. Dad said he might take out a second mortgage just to pay for my junior year. Her breath caught as she tried to keep her composure. How could I tell them I wasted $5,000 on jeans and parties while they're breaking their backs for me? The picture was becoming clearer, sharper, and infinitely more heartbreaking. So I said slowly, each word weighted with disbelief, you decided to steal instead. Her shoulders trembled. I remembered the insurance papers you showed me once when I was little, and the safe, the one where Grandma's jewelry was kept. I never forgot. After Mom mentioned that the necklace was worth over $100,000, I researched auction houses online. Her words tumbled out like a dam breaking. I thought I could sell it, pay off the cards, and no one would ever know. A hollow silence opened between us. Then I asked quietly but firmly, and you thought I wouldn't notice that my wife's most precious possession had vanished? Lucy winced, her voice barely above a whisper now. I was going to stage a burglary, make it look like a break-in. I had it all planned out. I'd come visit next week. We'd discover the mess together. You'd file an insurance claim. No one would suspect me. The cold precision of her planning chilled me more than the theft itself. My stomach clenched, a hollow ache spreading through me. You were going to let me believe strangers had violated our home. My voice shook, anger and grief braided together. Her eyes brimmed. I know how it sounds, but I was drowning, Grandpa. I couldn't breathe. The collection calls started last week. They're threatening to contact my parents, even the financial aid office. If they find out, I could lose everything. I graduate in a year. I just needed to make it through without destroying everyone's sacrifices. She buried her face in her hands, shoulders quaking. But instead, I destroyed us. The kitchen fell silent. Only the steady hum of the refrigerator remained, and somewhere outside a neighbor's dog barked at nothing. The world, indifferent, kept turning while ours fell apart. The worst part, I said at last, my voice low and aching, is that you were right about one thing. We would have helped your parents. Me, we would have found a way. And that was the truth that shattered her completely. I know that now. Lucy's voice came out muffled through the curtain of her hair as she buried her face in her hands. But I was so ashamed, Grandpa, so scared of disappointing everyone. My chest tightened. So you chose betrayal instead of trust. She nodded slowly, her shoulders trembling. I chose wrong. I chose everything wrong. When she finally lifted her gaze to me, her eyes, Eleanor's eyes, the same deep, stormy blue that had once looked at me with unwavering faith, pierced straight through me, and my heart already cracked broke a little more. "I don't know how to fix this," she whispered. "Neither do I admitted, my own voice heavier than stone. Then, faint at first but growing louder, with each passing second came the wail of sirens. Their distant cry cut through the night air, sharp and merciless. Lucy's eyes went wide with terror. "They're coming for me." She breathed the words, barely more than a ghost on her lips. I looked at her, really looked at her. Not as a thief, not as a criminal, but as a young woman drowning in mistakes, as my granddaughter who had stumbled so far off the path, yet still carried the same blood, the same fragile hope, the same need for forgiveness. And in that moment, everything Eleanor had taught me about family, about loyalty, about love that never abandons, came flooding back. Quick. I rose from my chair, every hesitation burned away by sudden, fierce clarity. "Go to the basement. Behind the furnace, there's a storage room. Hide there and don't come out until I tell you." Her lips trembled. "Grandpa, what if they don't trust me?" I pressed a firm hand to her shoulder, guiding her toward the basement stairs. "Stay quiet, no matter what you hear." She disappeared into the darkness below, just as the red and blue glow of police lights cut through my front windows, staining the walls with restless color. Tires crunched over gravel. 2 patrol cars pulled into my driveway, and I could already see silhouettes moving, officers, ready, trained, efficient. I took a deep breath, straightened my shoulders, and opened the front door before their knuckles could strike the wood. "Mr. Brewer." The first officer, a middle-aged Hispanic man with kind eyes, stepped forward. "I'm Officer Ramirez." "Yes," I said quickly, forcing a shaky smile. "And I'm terribly sorry. I made a mistake, a very costly mistake." The younger officer, Hayes, his jaw sharp, his eyes suspicious, watched me like a hawk. "What kind of mistake, sir?" I willed my voice not to crack. "I forgot to lock my doors this morning. When I came home from the grocery store, the wind had blown them open. I panicked. Thought someone had broken in." I lifted my hands helplessly. "Old man's nerves, I'm afraid." "Did you check the entire house?" Ramirez asked gently. "I did. Nothing's missing. Nothing's disturbed." I held his gaze steadily, praying my voice wouldn't betray the lie blooming between us. Just an old fool forgetting his own carelessness. Hayes flipped through his paperwork. "Sir, false emergency calls carry a $500 fine. Are you aware of that?" The number hit me like a physical blow. $500, nearly a month of groceries. I swallowed hard, forcing strength into my voice. "I understand completely. It's my fault, and I'll pay whatever is required." Hayes handed me a clipboard. My signature came out shaky, unfamiliar, as though it belonged to some other man, one willing to trade money for silence, lies for protection. "Will that be cash or check?" Ramirez asked, his tone softening slightly. "Check, please." I wrote carefully, my old teacher's penmanship steady, despite the storm inside me. I handed it over, heart hammering. When they finally left, their tail lights fading into the night, I stood at the door until the street was quiet again. Only then did I call softly down the stairs. "Lucy, you can come up now." She emerged slowly, her face streaked with tears, her body trembling. "Grandpa," her voice cracked. You lied to the police." For me, I steadied myself, even as guilt gnawed at my insides. "I protected my family." The words came out, firmer than I felt. "There's a difference." Her chin quivered. $500, I continued, "is money I can spare. Your future, that I cannot." I guided her back to the kitchen table where Eleanor's necklace still lay in its velvet box, glinting under the light like a silent witness to everything that had been broken. "Now," I said quietly, my voice carrying the weight of both love and sorrow, "we need to talk about what happens next." Lucy sat heavily across from me, every line of her body carved with shame and the weight of my sacrifice. Around us, the house was still, but the air itself seemed charged thick with grief, hope, and the fragile threads of a family fighting not to unravel completely. We sat in that silence, surrounded by the debris of broken trust. Lucy perched on the edge of Eleanor's favorite chair, small and fragile in her guilt, while I moved carefully to the desk drawer and retrieved the leather portfolio that held decades of our family's history. I placed it gently on the coffee table. Before we discuss your future, I said softly, you need to understand what you almost sold. Her eyes widened, glimmering with fear and curiosity as I opened the portfolio. Insurance papers, faded photographs, and Eleanor's handwritten letters spilled across the table. I ran my fingers over each piece reverently before speaking. This necklace, it was crafted in 1923 for your great-great-grandmother's wedding. Lucy leaned forward, captivated despite herself as I spread black and white photographs across the table. She wore it during the Depression, I continued. When families were losing everything, she could have sold it for food for survival. But she didn't. She hid it in the cellar wall. Why? Because some things matter more than survival. I pointed to a faded wedding portrait. Your great-grandmother wore it to her wedding in 1942, just before her husband was shipped overseas. He never came home. Lucy's fingers trembled as they traced the edges of the photograph. I never knew any of this, she whispered. And here I said, turning to a color photograph of Eleanor, radiant in white silk, the rubies of the necklace catching the church light is your grandmother at our wedding. She earned the right to wear it through character, through sacrifice, through putting others before herself. How did she earn it? Lucy asked, voice barely audible. She spent 3 years caring for her dying mother while working 2 jobs and raising her father as a baby. She never complained. She never asked for help. She never considered her own needs before others. I closed the album gently. Lucy's gaze drifted to the insurance appraisal. $120,000. That's just money, I said softly. The real value can't be measured in dollars. I leaned back in my chair, studying her face, the mix of awe, shame, and something fragile beginning to grow. Eleanor made me promise to give this necklace to you only when you truly understood what family loyalty means. And until last night, you failed that test completely. Lucy's eyes widened, and I softened my voice. Not failed. Not yet. I reached for a legal pad and pen. But there are conditions for your future. Real conditions. Her eyes lit up with a mix of hope and relief. Anything, Grandpa, anything. First, I began writing as I spoke. We tell your parents everything tonight. No more lies, no more secrets. They'll be devastated. They'll be disappointed, but they'll also help because that's what families do. Second, I continued, I'll pay your $5,000 in debts, but you'll work it off through community service. 50 hours for every 1,000. That's 250 hours. Her eyes widened, but she nodded, determination beginning to replace shame. Character isn't built through easy paths, I added and kept writing. Third, you'll see a financial counselor at college and attend budgeting workshops. Fourth, you'll call me every Sunday evening for check-ins. Lucy watched me write, tears threatening again. What about the necklace? She asked, her voice trembling. When you graduate debt-free, I said, when you've demonstrated a full year of responsible financial choices, when you can tell me what family loyalty really means without reading it from a textbook, then we'll discuss it. That could take years. I looked at her, the weight of my words settling between us like sunlight through stained glass. Good things usually do. I finished writing and handed her the paper. Sign this. It's our contract. Her hands shook as she read carefully, then signed, ink blotting slightly where her fingers trembled. Grandpa, she whispered. Why are you giving me another chance after what I did? I leaned closer, eyes soft but steady. Because your grandmother believed in second chances. And because you're 21 and still learning. Lucy's shoulders sagged, relief washing through her, mingled with tears, guilt, and the first stirrings of responsibility. Around us, the quiet of the living room seemed almost reverent, as if the walls themselves were acknowledging a fragile reconciliation in the making. Because I love you enough to set boundaries, I said gently, folding the paper with careful hands. And because true family doesn't abandon each other in crisis. Lucy's tears fell freely now, unrestrained, and real, not the practiced manipulation I had sometimes seen before. I moved to her chair and held her close, just as I had when she was 7 and shivering under the weight of nightmares. Her small frame fit into my arms like a fragile piece of glass, trembling but precious. We'll call your parents in an hour, I whispered, brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. Together, and then we'll start rebuilding what was broken. For the first time in days, a fragile spark of hope stirred between us. After our tearful, difficult, yet ultimately healing call with Dennis and Sarah Lucy, and I began the slow, painstaking work of restoring order to my violated home. She moved with desperate, almost frantic energy, as if picking up scattered papers and cushions could somehow mend the emotional fissures that had opened between us. "Hand me those insurance papers," I said, reorganizing the coffee table drawer she had ransacked just hours earlier. Lucy carefully gathered the scattered documents, her hands shaking slightly with effort and remorse. "Grandpa at college. Everyone has so much money," she admitted softly. I felt like the poor relative at every social event. I accepted the papers from her hands, meeting her gaze. "True wealth, Lucy," I said, "isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in the people who love you unconditionally, who stand by you even when you stumble." We moved to the bedroom where the open safe gaped like a wound in the wall. Lucy watched silently as I returned Eleanor's necklace to its place of honor, cradling it gently as if nothing in the world could replace the history it carried. "Would Grandma be disappointed in me?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. "She'd be proud," I said, steady and firm. "Proud that you found the courage to confess and that you're willing to change." I closed the safe with deliberate finality. Eleanor had believed that people could grow from their mistakes, and I hoped with every fiber of my being that Lucy would now begin to do so. Later in the kitchen, we prepared a simple dinner together, grilled cheese sandwiches and tomato soup, the comfort food of her childhood. She moved around my kitchen with an ease born of memory, retrieving plates from the cabinets she had known since age 5. "I miss this," she said quietly, ladling soup into bowls. "Coming here after school, doing homework at your table while you graded papers." "You're always welcome here," I said with a small, gentle smile. "But next time, use the front door." The joke earned a watery, almost shy smile from her, and the tension of the day eased slightly. We ate slowly, savoring the food and the fragile calm, discussing college courses, her major, and future plans that didn't involve theft or shortcuts. As evening shadows stretched across the kitchen, Lucy helped me load the dishwasher, each plate and utensil, a small step toward trust rebuilt. "I should go back to campus," she said reluctantly, shouldering her bag. "Face reality. Reality isn't going anywhere." I said, my voice soft but firm, but facing it with family support makes all the difference. I hugged her tightly, a long, genuine embrace, the first since her birthday. "Remember our agreement," I reminded her. Sunday phone calls, financial counseling, complete honesty. I remember everything she whispered, her hand lingering in mine for a moment. "Thank you," she said quietly, tears glinting in her eyes, "for saving me today from the police, from myself." "That's what grandfathers do," I murmured, my heart full. 2 weeks later, my phone rang on a Sunday evening. "Hi, Grandpa. It's Lucy," she said right on time. "How was your week?" I asked, a faint smile tugging at my lips. "Better," she replied. "I started seeing a counselor at the student health center, and I told Mom and Dad about the exact amounts I owed." Her voice sounded steadier, more mature, carrying the weight of newfound responsibility. "Dad said," I prompted gently. "You taught me well about taking responsibility," she said. "How did they react to the debt details?" "They were upset," she admitted, "but grateful I was finally honest." "Mom cried, but she said she was proud of me for getting help." Lucy paused, and in that pause I could hear the quiet, steadying strength in her breath. She was learning, growing, beginning to understand what family trust and honor truly meant. For the first time in weeks, the knot in my chest loosened, and I dared to believe that the storm had passed, if only just enough for the sun to peek through the clouds. Grandpa Lucy's voice trembled softly over the line. "I've been thinking about what you said, about earning the right to wear Grandma's necklace, and I think I understand now." Her words hung in the quiet air, like a delicate bridge being built between past mistakes and future hope. "It's not about the money or even the jewelry," she continued, the weight of realization in each syllable. "It's about being the kind of person who honors what came before, who respects the sacrifices and love that brought us here." Through my living room window, Eleanor's portrait caught the lamplight. Her serene smile seemed almost alive, approving, as though she could see inside Lucy's heart and nod in quiet satisfaction. I felt a warmth spread through my chest, the kind of warmth that comes from knowing that lessons learned the hard way might finally take root. "When you truly understand that, Lucy," I said softly, my voice carrying the patience of decades, "we'll talk about your future inheritance. Until then, keep learning, keep growing." "I will, Grandpa." I promise, she said, her voice firm with newfound resolve. I love you, she whispered. I love you too, sweetheart. I said, my throat thick with emotion, more than any necklace could ever be worth. After hanging up, I sat in my quiet house, the soft hum of the refrigerator and the distant rustle of leaves outside forming a gentle, meditative background. For the first time in weeks, I felt something I hadn't allowed myself to feel in a long time, genuine hope. Family bonds once broken could be rewired stronger than before if both people were willing to do the difficult work of rebuilding trust, of confronting pain with honesty and compassion. I glanced at Eleanor's portrait again. I could almost hear her voice whispering in the quiet, urging patience, understanding, and love. She would have been proud not just of me, but of Lucy, of the resilience and courage that had begun to bloom in her heart. The house, once heavy with tension and fear, now seemed infused with quiet possibility. It was the kind of peace that came from hard-earned forgiveness, from acknowledging mistakes and choosing to learn from them, from generations past reaching forward to shape a brighter present. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions in the comments. To listen to the next story, click the box on the left. Thank you for watching.